The immediate, visceral reaction from the investment community has been a masterclass in human psychology, ranging from apocalyptic declarations to stubborn, unshakable faith, and it's within this emotional chaos that the real danger and opportunity lies. Social media platforms are currently a digital war zone, with long-time investors, some who have held dinar for 15 years or more, openly declaring this freeze as the final betrayal, the proof they were wrong all along, and they are now liquidating their holdings at a loss, convinced that the entire investment was a scam from the beginning. This wave of fear is powerful and contagious, and it's being amplified by the usual chorus of negative commentators in the mainstream financial world who have always labeled the dinar trade a speculative fantasy. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, the gurus and perpetual hype machines are already spinning this freeze as the ultimate bullish signal, claiming this is the mandatory lull, or quiet period, that always happens right before a massive, history-making revaluation, urging their followers to buy the dip and accumulate more while the weak hands are selling. This polarized environment creates a fog of war that makes rational analysis almost impossible for the average investor. But let's cut through the hype and the hysteria with cold, hard facts. The Central Bank of Iraq has not frozen the rate in a vacuum. This action comes immediately on the heels of their most successful period of black market suppression. For the first time in modern history, the street rate and the official rate are within a tangible, manageable distance of each other, sometimes differing by only a few percent rather than the 20 to 30% gaps seen in the past. This convergence is the entire goal of the recent monetary reform policy, and the freeze is the logical, calculated next step to cement this fragile victory. Think of it like this. The CBI has been pushing a boulder up a steep hill for years, fighting gravity in the form of economic corruption, dollar smuggling, and speculative attacks. They have finally, through immense effort, gotten the boulder to the crest of the hill. The freeze is them planting their feet, bracing themselves, and ensuring the boulder doesn't roll backwards due to a sudden shock or a loss of momentum. They are forcing the entire Iraqi economy, from the largest importer to the smallest street vendor, to accept and transact at this new, unified rate level until it becomes the unchallenged normal. This process is painful and unnerving because it removes the element of time. Investors don't know how long this freeze will last, and the uncertainty is a psychological torture. However, from a strategic standpoint, this period of enforced stability is absolutely necessary to break the old, destructive cycles of the Iraqi economy. It allows the banking sector to strengthen under the new rules. It builds domestic and international confidence in the Iraqi dinar as a stable store of value rather than a speculative toy, and it provides the government with a clear, stable financial baseline from which to finally pass a federal budget and initiate large-scale reconstruction projects. The investors who are selling in panic today are fundamentally misunderstanding the objective. The CBI's primary goal, as stated repeatedly in their own official communications, is not to make foreign currency speculators wealthy overnight. Its mandate is to ensure domestic price stability, to control inflation, to build foreign currency reserves, and to create a strong, independent monetary policy. This rate freeze is a powerful, aggressive tool to achieve those exact goals. It is a declaration of monetary sovereignty. So, while your social media feed is flooded with emotional reactions, the data from Baghdad tells a different, more nuanced story. The freeze is not an endgame. It is a critical, high-stakes consolidation phase. It is the Central Bank of Iraq demonstrating that it is finally in control of its own currency, and for any investor who truly believes in the long-term potential of a sovereign and economically independent Iraq, this should be interpreted not as a red light, but as a profound and necessary amber light, a signal that the entire system is being reset according to a new, more robust, and ultimately more promising set of rules. The journey was never going to be a straight line up. It was always going to be a brutal test of patience and strategic understanding, and this freeze is the ultimate test of both. So, where do we go from this precipice of frozen numbers and boiling emotions? To understand the future, we must abandon the simplistic revaluation fantasy and confront the complex, gritty reality of what a modern central bank actually does when it engineers a monetary transformation of this magnitude. The freeze is not a waiting room. It is an active operating table where the very structure of the Iraqi economy is being surgically altered, and the patient is under anesthesia, which is this enforced period of stability. The Central Bank of Iraq is now leveraging this frozen period to execute a multi-pronged strategy that foreign investors rarely discuss but is infinitely more important than any hypothetical exchange rate. The first and most critical front is the brutal war on the remaining pockets of dollar dominance within the local economy. During this freeze, the CBI is intensifying its scrutiny of all commercial and personal transactions that still rely on the US dollar, forcing a complete and total transition to the Iraqi dinar for all internal trade. This is a monumental undertaking. It means that Iraqi businesses, from massive import-export firms to local shopkeepers, are being compelled to recalibrate their entire pricing, accounting, and supply chain models to the dinar. The freeze provides them with the predictable, stable environment needed to make this painful but essential shift without the fear of the currency's value wildly fluctuating beneath their feet. Imagine trying to set a yearly budget or sign a long-term contract if the value of your money could change tomorrow. The freeze eliminates that paralyzing uncertainty for the Iraqi business community, which is the true engine of any sustainable economic recovery. Simultaneously, the CBI is using this quiet period to aggressively build up its foreign currency reserves, particularly gold. Recent data from international financial institutions shows a steady and significant increase in Iraq's gold holdings, a classic strategy to backstop a national currency and instill long-term confidence. This isn't about having a vault of shiny metal, it's about sending a powerful message to the global financial community that the Iraqi dinar is moving away from being a purely fiat currency, loosely managed, towards one with tangible assets behind it, which strengthens its credibility and paves the way for its eventual reintegration into the global financial system. Furthermore, this frozen period is being used to pressure the Iraqi government into finally passing the long-delayed federal budget. For years, political squabbling has prevented a budget from being approved, which in turn has stalled every major infrastructure and development project in the country. A stable, frozen exchange rate gives the government a fixed, reliable number to use for all its financial planning. It removes the exchange rate as a variable and an excuse for inaction. The CBI is effectively forcing the government's hand, creating the stable fiscal conditions necessary for the state to finally start spending money on rebuilding the nation's shattered infrastructure, its roads, its power grid, its water treatment facilities. This government spending, injected into the economy in Iraqi dinar, is the rocket fuel for real, organic economic growth. It creates jobs, boosts GDP, and increases the genuine demand for the currency from within, which is the only foundation for a lasting increase in its value. This is the brutal truth that many investors miss. A strong currency isn't declared, it is earned through a strong, productive economy. The Central Bank of Iraq is currently doing the hard, unglamorous work of building that economy from the ground up, and the rate freeze is the essential scaffolding for that construction project. The speculators staring at their screens waiting for a magic number are missing the entire story unfolding in the real world. The value of your investment isn't being determined in a secret meeting about exchange rates. It's being determined right now on the streets of Baghdad and Basra, as businesses adapt, as gold reserves grow, and as political pressure mounts for tangible progress. This freeze is the calm, but it is a productive, intentional calm, the kind that exists at the eye of a hurricane, where the forces are gathering for the next, potentially even more powerful, phase of this long and arduous transformation. The patience being demanded of you now is not passive. It is the patience of a strategist watching their plan unfold, piece by deliberate piece, in a game far more complex and significant than mere speculation. Now we arrive at the ultimate question, the one that every single person holding a stack of Iraqi dinar notes is asking themselves right now. What do I actually do with this information? The analysis of the freeze, the understanding of the strategic consolidation, all of it is meaningless if it doesn't translate into a clear, actionable path forward for you, the investor, who has real money and real hopes on the line. The first and most critical step you must take immediately is a radical shift in your own mindset. You must stop thinking like a speculator waiting for a lottery number and start thinking like a strategic shareholder in the future of Iraq itself. This is not a semantic trick. It is a fundamental psychological recalibration that will determine whether you navigate the coming months with wisdom or with panic. The hype gurus have trained you to watch for RV, alerts, and secret codes, but the real signals you need to be monitoring are the public, tangible indicators of economic progress within Iraq. Your new dashboard is not a cryptic chat room. It is the official website of the Central Bank of Iraq for statements on monetary policy and reserve levels. It is the reports from the International Monetary Fund on Iraq's economic reform progress. It is the news out of the Iraqi parliament regarding the passage of the federal budget and the launch of major infrastructure projects. When you see a headline about a new power plant being built or a water treatment facility being opened, funded in dinar, you should see that as a direct, positive development for the long-term value of your currency, far more significant than any temporary fluctuation or freeze. This mindset transforms you from a passive bystander into an informed analyst, and it immunizes you against the daily waves of fear and euphoria that sweep through the investment community. The second step is to use this period of frozen stability to conduct a ruthless and honest audit of your own financial and psychological position. Ask yourself the hard questions. How much of my net worth is tied up in this investment? If this freeze lasts for another 6 months, another year, or even longer, can I financially and emotionally withstand that weight without making a desperate, fear-based decision? This is not about doubting the potential of the dinar. This is about respecting your own personal risk tolerance and ensuring you don't become one of the stories of people who lost everything because they bet more than they could afford to lose on a single, albeit promising, outcome. The third step is to become a source of calm, rational information amidst the storm. When you see the panic posts on social media, you now have the knowledge to understand the deeper context. You can choose to be the voice that explains the strategic necessity of the freeze, the importance of economic stability over speculative gain, and the real-world progress that is being made while the exchange rate appears dormant. By doing so, you not only help others but you also reinforce your own understanding and conviction. This is no longer just an investment. It is a test of your ability to see the bigger picture, to understand macroeconomics, and to exercise disciplined patience in a world screaming for instant gratification. The Central Bank of Iraq has drawn a line in the sand. They have chosen the difficult path of building a real economy over the easy path of printing wealthy foreigners. Your choice now is whether you align your strategy with theirs for the potential of a sustainable, long-term reward, or whether you succumb to the short-term noise and abandon the journey right at its most critical and decisive moment. The path to a truly valuable and stable Iraqi dinar was never going to be paved with the easy promises of gurus. It was always going to be built with the gritty, unsexy bricks of monetary reform, economic stability, and national infrastructure. You have just been given the blueprint. The question is, do you have the fortitude to see it through? And that is why this conversation cannot end here. If you have made it this far, you are clearly not a casual observer. You are a serious individual seeking the truth in a sea of misinformation. You now have a strategic framework, but the landscape is constantly shifting. To ensure you never miss a critical update, to have a community that discusses real economic data instead of fantasy, you need to take action right now. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because in the coming days and weeks, we will be breaking down every single development from the CBI, analyzing official budget announcements, and providing the kind of deep, data-driven context you simply cannot find anywhere else. Second, I want you to go down into the comments section and tell me one key insight you gained from this analysis. What was the most important perspective shift for you? Was it understanding the freeze as a strategic tool? Was it realizing the importance of the federal budget? Your engagement helps build a community of knowledgeable investors. And third, and most importantly, share this video with every single person you know who is invested in the Iraqi dinar. They are likely confused, scared, and hearing nothing but hype or doom. You now have the power to provide them with clarity and perspective. Be the person who shares the real analysis. Help them transition from being speculators to being strategic partners in Iraq's economic future. The information is now in your hands. What you do with it next is up to you. Subscribe.